Good evening. Glad to have you with us this evening. A couple announcements before we begin our devotional period. Mentioned this morning that Randy Tribble had knee replacement surgery this week. He's doing fairly well. Randy Tapley finished treatment round in the last few days as well, so that's good. Ron Bettis here this morning, not doing great, but able to be out this morning. We had both Lori and Tim Capps back with us this morning, so several encouraging things going on as far as those who have been out. A couple of other things that are improvements. Mark and Tracy Tidwell's daughter, Cassie, has doing pretty good. Had a heart attack a few days ago, as many of you know, and hopes to leave the hospital here in just the next couple of days. I was talking to Tiffany this morning. Her mother is there a little longer than they thought, maybe getting treatment started for her. That hasn't quite got started yet, still healing from surgery, but she is doing fairly well, seeing some improvement right now from the healing from the surgery, so that's all good. I want you to continue to remember these folks in our prayers, and also Sister Brenda McLean, who lost her sister, Deanne Howell, just a few days ago, so keep her in your prayers as well. John's going to lead us in our singing, and then we'll head to our classes in just a few minutes.
This evening we'll be singing about the Father, the Son, and their place in our lives. Let's sing out. Father, take my life. Father, make my life closer to you, more in love with you. Father, show me now that you love me. Please show me how you care for me. You always want me to be close to you, Father. Christ only, always living in me. Let's stand for our last song. After this, Brother Austin will lead us in a dismissal prayer. Have you seen Jesus, my Lord? He's here in plain view. Take a look, open your eyes. He'll show it to you. Have you ever stood at the ocean with the white foam at your feet? Felt the endless thundering motion? Then I say you've seen Jesus, my Lord. Have you seen Jesus, my Lord? He's here in plain view. Take a look, open your eyes. He'll show it to you. Have you ever stood at the sunset with a white bellowing red? Seen the clouds suspended like feathers? Then I say you've seen Jesus, my Lord. Have you seen Jesus, my Lord? He's here in plain view. Take a look, open your eyes. He'll show it to you.
Let's pray. Lord, we thank you so much for this time that we can come together with our brothers and sisters and praise you. We ask that as we go to classes, you help us be attentive and learn and be with the teachers as they teach us and our children. As we go through this week, help us to always remember that we belong to you. Help that guide our actions this week. Thank you for all that you do for us, and especially for your son, Jesus. In his name we pray. Amen.
I could. But haven't seen it happen before. It didn't work. Somebody's getting ahead of me. I know, I didn't do that. All right, we started this class a couple of weeks ago, and we got interrupted last week, but that's all right. We're going to be looking at Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, Taoism, Judaism, and those who go nowhere. This will not be an exclusive, you'll learn everything about these class. First of all, I don't know everything. Secondly, I've about put myself into a coma reading through some of these things. It's just difficult to understand. And thirdly, it's just, this class is not designed for you all to know everything about this. This is for you to know something about your neighbors. Here, we're going to look at Hinduism today. Before we start that, I got this week. I want to read this to y'all. This is not necessarily how they will react, but this is how it actually happens today. I got this last week. This is from the Orphans Lifeline International, which Betty and I help support. Martha was abandoned by both her parents when she was only 5 days old. Her father had already gone before she was born, having abandoned her mother when he learned she was pregnant. He had been having an affair. He left and never returned. Still hasn't. Her mother, facing the prospect of rearing a child on her own, simply chose not to do so and left the tiny infant girl with her sister and her mother, and she ran off with another man. She has never returned either. 5 days old. For years, her aunt and her grandmother struggled to care for Martha, who struggled with asthma inherited from her mother. Her aunt and her mother were and are both agricultural laborers. They earn less than enough to care for themselves, let alone young Martha. As young women, they both suffered the abuse that uneducated women must endure in India. They are considered a liability and an unnecessary cost without skills that contribute to the family wealth. I'm reading this verbatim. Without education, their husbands are chosen for them. Their husbands are paid to take on the burden of their existence. They are beaten, used as indentured servants, and punished simply for being the burden. We have removed her from that situation and the heartless parameters of the cultural prison that she was trapped in. You think, how can somebody do that? We're going to be looking at Hinduism. In Hinduism, you're going to find out that there is an unseen, undefinable force called karma. See, the father said, this is not my problem that this girl was born in this low-income family. Mom saying, it's not my problem that I can't take care of her. You know who the problem is? The problem is the girl. It's her problem. You'll see, she has been born into this family. And because of the way she existed in her last life, or the life before that, or life before that, she's born this way. It's her fault. It's not ours. And you can walk away from a 5-day-old child. And they do. They did. That's one of the things we're going to learn about Hinduism. There's 2 billion people worldwide, about 2 million in the United States. As I said, I didn't know this, but there are several Hindu temples in Arkansas, one in Northwest. I found a new one I didn't even know existed. There's one down in Texarkana as well, one in Northwest Arkansas, one in Jacksonville, one in 2 or 3 in Little Rock, one in Bauxite, and I forgot where the other one is. So they're here among us.
I think there's one in Fort Smith as well.
Pardon, Greg?
I think there's one in Fort Smith as well.
I think you're right. It's weird. You depending on which map you go to, is which ones they tell you what it is.
I've been working in Fort Smith for a year. I'm pretty sure I've seen it.
There's 2 Buddhist temples there, I know. There may be probably is a Hindu temple. Hindu comes from the belief and practices of the people of the Indus Valley. That's where they get their name. There is no single founder of Hinduism. There is no single common text. There are no standard teachings. So what you learn about them, somebody said, well, that's not what I learned. So this course is, this purpose of this class is to help us learn some things and find out what they know and where they come from. Their roots go back beyond 3000 BC. If you want to put it in the context, take it about 800 years before Abraham walked this earth, and you have the beginnings of Hinduism. There's only 3 holy books. We're not going to dig into them because they're a little bit difficult to understand. And you'll understand why really quickly. The Vedas are hymns and incantations, and that just means what they call mantras, that are compiled over 1,000 years before Christ. You'll see down the bottom it's written sometime between 1500 and 800 BC. 1,000 makes a nice round number. Because no one literally knows when these were compiled. Because they're all handed down orally. Someone finally wrote them down between 1500 and 800 BC. It consists of hundreds of hymns composed and compiled by those that are directed at thousands at this time of deities. Hundreds of mantras. And a mantra is just a sound or a phrase that you say over and over and over and over and over and over to focus your mind. These are chanted, these are composed, compiled, and chanted on specific occasions, like someone's sick, and you're calling, you want some help for them getting well, or it hasn't rained, or it's too much rain, or whatever. These were what they chanted to get what they wanted. The Upanishads literally means sitting beside a teacher. It means you have a guru, a sage, a monk who has learned from other monks, and he sits there and dispenses his knowledge. That's what you see the lines going out to those who sit around him. The Upanishads are just that. It's the compilations of those people who heard things sitting beside a teacher. It's composed sometime between 800 and 500 BC. And here's why it's difficult. It's the philosophical commentaries on the nature of reality. Now, if you've got that on your bookshelf, I bet it's collecting dust. Philosophical arguments. Somebody's arguing and somebody else arguing and somebody else saying this, and it's just the philosophical commentaries on the nature of reality. They're all oral traditions that are handed down from one generation to another. So it makes this a difficult. That's interesting. Colors changed. Well, this is the illustration of the Bhagavad Gita. More, just really should be termed the Gita. The guy on the right is a guy named Arjuna, and the guy on the left, which when I put it up there is blue tinted, is Krishna. Behind him are the war elephants. The Bhagavad Gita is a 700-verse Hindu scripture. It's their most valued text right now. Most revered text. It's a dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna covering the ethical and philosophical dilemmas of war and life. Now, if that volume's on your bookshelf, it's probably collecting dirt too. The Bhagavad Gita is read by many, but I'm just saying, I don't pull down books on philosophy to find out about the realities of war and life. It covers discussions ranging all the way from the way of life to how do you get out of this life? You think, well, we understand it. They didn't understand that. They were trying to figure out what happens after you die. And so they have come up with a system where you don't really die. You do, but you don't. I'll explain that in a second. The Bhagavad Gita, according to one source, engages us to live life with purity and strength and discipline, honesty, kindness, and integrity. Why? To find your purpose and to live it fully. You find your purpose. Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam are all works religions. You work yourself to a better state. There is no grace. There is no grace in Hinduism. There's no grace in Buddhism, we'll find out. There is no grace in Islam. You have to perform the works yourself if you want to have a better life. I threw these in, not because I want you to remember all these, but to give you a flavor of Hinduism. Ahimsa is a respect for all life. Why? In Hinduism, when you die, you don't go to a better place or a worse place. You're reborn in some caste, some place, some family. And you do that over and over and over and over and over, and there is no known ending of that. They work up, you have to, literally to get out of Hinduism, you have to work up to being an ascetic monk, probably deprived of food and stuff, who finally, they say, achieves release from this world. If you get enough bad karma here, you don't come back as a human. You may come back as a slug, as a snail, as an insect, as a cow, as some animal. And you work your way all the way back to being human, and then you work your way up the ladder again. Ahimsa is a respect for all life. As one writer put it this way, the chicken you ate today may one day eat you. That's a quote. The chicken that you ate today may one day eat you. So there's a respect for all life, because that bug you're stepping on may be your grandfather. Or your great-grandfather. So there's a respect for all life. In fact, the most ascetic ones will actually literally sweep the ground in front of them so they don't step on anything that's alive.
What about bugs?
They sweep the bugs off. They don't step on bugs.
And now what about that little girl? There was no respect there. I don't know who she could have been in a former life or will be in the next life.
But it's her fault, not theirs. Because what she did is what put her in that position. They didn't put her in that position. What she did put her in that position.
If somebody put themselves into being a slug and you don't want to step on them, to me, you should treat that child a lot better than you would a slug. That contradicts itself.
Here's their thinking, at least some of their thinking. When you do good to someone, that's fine, but it's not because you need to do good to them. It reflects on you. You're the one doing the good, therefore you get the good from that. If they do, fine, that makes no difference. If you do bad to them, it's a reflection on you because you did bad. It doesn't make any difference if you hurt them, but it hurts you worse. You get bad karma from harming someone. You get good karma from doing something good to someone. Not that you did good to them because they needed it, but because it gave you good karma. It's a works religion. You're working your way to be better and better and better and better. And that's all they had till Jesus came. That's all they had till Jesus came. Now, avatars, anybody in here seen the movie Avatar? Guess where they got the ideas? You have to look at, I look at movies these days and go, oh, come on. Star Wars, I know where the Force comes from. Oh, come on. We'll get to that in a second. Avatars are gods appearing in different forms. In that movie, you saw the guy, he became, got in the machine and became one of the beings that lived on that earth, or that planet, and he was connected with everything alive on that planet. Avatars are just gods who come down in different forms. There are millions. This blows my mind. I've got the figures. I've read 500 million. I've read, one guy said, I'm pretty sure it's 330 million. I got another one. I'll put up here. Well, I'll put up there. There's 300 million gods. 300 million gods. And the gods don't help you much. The gods don't get you out of this earth. The gods are to be worshipped. So these gods appear in different forms. The Atman, the force, either way, is that which goes to all living things. It connects every living being, every living thing in this world. Everything has what they call Atman. All right, we say in the South, Atman. It's that essence that's there that connects everybody. And you want to respect that. There are 3 ways that you can work your way up the ladder to get out of this world. The first one is karma marga. Karma, you're getting karma. Karma marga or karma yoga is the way of rules, rituals, sacrifices, working your way up. It was started by the priest. They set the rules, the regulations, the sacrifices, and you follow them, and you would finally get out. That lasted a good while. The second one is Jnana Marga, or Jnana Yoga. It's the way of knowledge. It came a period of time when everybody was really philosophical about things, and so if you sit down there and thought about all the things you've been taught, and thought about all the things you've been taught, and thought about all the things you've been taught, and then thought some more about all the things you've been taught, that's the way of knowledge. That lasted a couple of hundred years. What is practiced from 1500 AD, which I thought was very interesting. 500 years ago, it's the way of devotion. You find a god, and you stick with that god or gods. When we were in Guyana, you'd walk into I got to visit a couple of houses. And you walk in there, and it kind of makes you stop, because right in front of you is this idol with, in a dilapidated house, a very fine sanctuary part of the house where they worship their idol. So you pick an idol or gods, and you stay devoted to them. And hopefully they'll help you climb the ladder. There is no certainty in Hinduism. Brahma is the high creator god. There's 3 of them. Not three creator gods. There's 3 main gods. Just 3. There's the big, I think I'm going to get to it in a second. I'll get to it here. Brahma is the high creator God, aloof and unconcerned. He created everything and said, okay, I'm done. I'm finished. I'm out of here. And that's the way a lot of people look at God today. He got things going. He's not really concerned with this world because look at the world. Look at the shape it's in. And that's what they did. The last word there I want us to look at is caste. The caste is a socio-economic system. It started out as a separation of light and dark skin. That's the way it began. The people in the Indus Valley lived there. They came in. People, what I read, people from Africa came into it, and later on, I lost the term now. The Aryans from the Caspian Sea came in and created the caste system. The caste system just defines everybody originally into 5 castes. If you're a priest or an intellectual, you're at the top. Of course, you're a priest, you're an intellectual. And that's where you got to get to if you want to get out of this world. You got to get that high. If you don't, forget it. You're not going to make it. You'll come back again and again and again and again. It never stops. If you're a Kshatriya, you're a warrior or a ruler. If you're a Messiah, you're a tradesman, an artisan, a skilled worker. If you're just a Sudra, you're just a low-class agricultural workers. The brick carriers, the wood choppers, anything that's menial. And then there are those that just don't have any caste at all. They're called the Harigens or the Dalits, or Dalits, I don't know how to pronounce it for sure. They have no caste. They're untouchable. You cannot change caste in this life. You cannot. System started about 700 BC, and now from these 5 castes, there's 3,000 subcasts. Now you think, this was abolished in 1950. It didn't exist anymore. I work with a Hindu guy. No, excuse me. I work with an Indian guy in the lab. And he had a PhD in chemistry. I wasn't impressed with him that much, but we got talking about things. Kind of a quiet guy, stayed to himself, but we got talking one day and talking about going to school. And we just brought it up. How did you get your PhD? How did you get to go to school? And he said, that was no problem. No problem. My family is Kshatriya, warrior class. No problem getting to school. None. I went, wait a second. That was outlawed 70 years ago. But it's not. It's still practiced today. A little girl named Martha says it's still practiced today. That's what we got to find out when people move over here. When your neighbors move in and they come in, you have a new worker who is from India. You at least know some background on him. Where?
India. Where's it from?
Where's India from?
India.
Oh. I'm still not understanding.
In the previous slide, it had something started with a K, is what he's asking.
Oh, which one? The Kshatriyas? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Those are the warriors. They're the army men. Or the rulers.
Men?
Are the rulers, yeah.
Okay, I just thought I asked.
This is a depiction of the endless knot. There's a bunch of them. I picked a nice simple one. This is simple. This is an illustration of karma. That's the link between deeds and consequences. As that knot never ends, neither does the accumulation of good and bad karma. You can't wipe your slate clean. You come back again, it's not like you have a clean slate and you get to start over. No. Everything you did in the last life, you bring forward. And everything you did in the life before that, and the life before that, it all gets brought forward. You can be really, really good in this life. In the next life, you still may not be any better off because everything you did wrong in the past lives. And you're penalized for that. You think karma, we're beyond that. How many of y'all have seen a video on Facebook or on whatever, Instagram, when a guy says something about instant karma? I see Rachel nodding. I've seen it. Go to Walmart, out here on 65. Go back to the back by the deli, the last row. Look on the end cap. Look at the bottle. The bottle is labeled karma. I don't know what it is, but it really bugs me. We're letting it's creeping into our system. We're going to have to understand some of this thing because people think, karma's, yeah, you deserve that. You'll hear the phrase, well, that's just the way it was meant to be. Ever used that? Ever heard it said? Oh, that's just the way it was meant to be. Who meant it to be? Well, they died. Well, I guess that's just the way it was meant to be. No. They'll put the idea comes from karma. And that, one thing that bugs me. They don't call their religion Hinduism, they call it Dharma. It's literally a way of life. And it is. If there's anything that's redeeming about Hinduism, they live their religion. They live what they are. It's not something you bundle up and go to the temple with. No, it's what you are. It's your way of life. One of the other pet peeves I've got is the word Maya. I've got a niece named Maya. She's not an illusion. It's a neat name, but do we know what it means? You're an illusion. They call this is an illusion. This doesn't exist. You don't exist. This building doesn't exist. The trees, the column buildings, nothing exists. It's all illusion. Nothing is real. It's all Maya. But they fight for what is not real. So I don't know how they get around that. Moksha is the last thing we're going to look at. Well, it's almost the last thing. It's just deliverance from the endless cycle of reincarnation. They want to get out of this endless cycle of reincarnation. It's not, will it happen? It is inevitable. It will happen to them again and again and again and again.
Hey, Don, can I ask you a question on that? You said only the priests finally quit being reincarnated, right? Reincarnated.
That's what
But yet
that's what I've
you
read.
can't change caste, and they're at the caste. So if you're not in the priestly caste, how are you ever going to get out of that cycle? Because you can't change caste. You're just like stuck here forever.
You can't change caste in this life.
Well, this life isn't real anyway.
When you come back, hopefully if you got enough good karma, that'll move you up the ladder. That's your only hope. And that's what I've read is, if you're not a priest, forget it. You're coming back again and again and again and again and again. When we get to Buddhism, we'll find out Gautama Buddha said he was reincarnated 550 times. I don't know how he knows, but that's what he wrote down. That's what we do. Yoga. This is the Hindu concept of meditation. And it's depicted, as a meditative process. And I don't have anything wrong with meditation. But yoga is used to bring the soul under control by controlling the body. And the strongest mantra that you can say to help control your mind and bring your body under control is the mantra Om. That's the symbol of Om. It's upside down, backwards to us. So if you're involved in yoga, I don't have a problem you're involved in a meditative process. But if your person leading you encourages you to make certain sounds, certain phrases over and over and over and over, you might talk with them about what that means. Why are they doing that? Because this literally is calling for the great Brahma Atman to connect with you directly. So what are you asking into your life? See, it's just a meditative process. But what are you asking into your life? Paul said sometimes people worship demons. I don't know. I'm not going to go that far on this, but what are we asking into our lives? So be careful. Reincarnation is that endless cycle of being reborn. And the last one I want to, as far as terminology, is syncretism. And it's a word we've brought up that we find in the Gospel of Colossians. Syncretism is just literally taking some of this, and some of this, and some of this, and, oh yeah, some of this over here. You put it all together, and this is what you live by. When we were in Guyana, there are a lot of Hindus down there. And you can talk to them about Jesus, and they'll get excited about it. And they'll say, oh, yeah, I believe in Jesus. And then maybe the next year you see them, and you find out, oh, yeah, we still worship Jesus, but they still worship Hanuman. And and they still worship Ganesha, and they still worship whatever else. They just added Jesus to their pantheon. That's all they did. That's called syncretism. When you pick and choose what you want to believe, and you put it all together, and that's your God, or your gods. Hindus do that very readily. That was the way we found out in Guyana. So I'm going to use that as my standard of measurement. They do it quite easily there. And so it takes a lot of study with people to get them to understand, no, there's just Jesus. Because all the rest of it, use your term, is Maya. It's illusion. So when you talk to them, find out what they believe. If you go, don't be surprised. Let me see if I got that. No, that's next week's lesson. I'm going to get into next week's lesson. I've got some pictures of some shrines. In Guyana, you would go into a Hindu home, or no, you just go by past the Hindu home, and out in one corner will be, on a bamboo pole, will be 4, 5, 6 flags flying, prayer flags, praying all the time because they're flapping in the breeze. They have prayers written on them, so they're praying to their gods all the time. And they go out there in that little corner. They may have a little shrine out there they may go out to. They may have a shrine inside their house. One of the weirdest things I've ever seen was a shrine inside the house, an elaborate shrine inside the house, and a big screen TV in a house that didn't look like it'd stand up. Literally. We'll talk a little bit more about that next week. We're going to be at this for a couple of weeks, I think. I got 5 minutes. The Brahman is a great world soul. Out of this, 3 souls emerged. 3 gods emerged. I don't know why 3, but this is what the great philosophers and thinkers thought. That's what they come up with. There's 3. Brahman, who could care less about you. Shiva, who said, I'll wipe you off the face of the earth. And Vishnu says, no, we're going to preserve you. So guess why they worship Shiva and Vishnu? Because one preserves and one tries to destroy. Each of them is worshipped in 1,000 different names. For Vishnu, the most common one is Krishna. For Shiva, there's a bunch. That's why I'm keeping this as simple as I can get it, because if we look at all the things that they're called by, we all get bored to death. And out of these came 300 plus million gods. Now, if you take that, there's 2 billion Hindus, a couple of gods for every person on earth. Different gods. On the left is Shiva, the destroyer. And there's so much symbolism in that, I have no idea what all that means. Because I don't know what the symbol in the hand means, or what, you know around the snake is the cobra. The cobra was sacred to the Hindus, still is. It has a cobra around its neck. It has a lady blowing water out over a crescent moon in her hair. All those mean something. I don't know what. Because it doesn't make any difference. Because these are man's thoughts about a God, not a literal God. On the right is Vishnu. He has a hood of cobras. And the only thing I recognize is a symbol Om hanging from his neck on a necklace at the very bottom of the page. These are their gods. For some reason or other, most of their gods are blue. Pardon? They mostly look feminine, that's true. And since you saw the movie Avatar, what was the avatar? What color was the avatar? Blue. Think we don't borrow from Hinduism for the movies, in which most people learn what life is all about? I already talked about that. There should be a break in there. I think we got to close. John.
Which country do most Hindus live in?
India. But but they're in Southeast Asia, They're in South America. They're all over the world. But the heaviest concentration is Asia, in India. Ceylon as well. Out of this will come Buddhism, which will go through China, through Thailand, through all of Southeast Asia too. Korea, Japan. I've got a picture I'll show y'all next week. She's talking about, when she was in Singapore, she saw one of the temples, and they're very elaborate. Boy, Hindus build nothing but over there, but elaborate temples. I'll show you one in Little Rock. Not quite the same. But yeah, they're very, oh. Now we'll save that till we get to Taoism. Thought flashed through my mind, but I decided I'm going to do that. I think we're going to call it halts right here, because the rest of this is going to be way too much to get through for next week, till next week. And this is where I wanted to get to. Next week we'll look at what is Hindu worship. Because Hindus do worship. How and what do they do? Where do they do that? What does the temple look like? Which I'll show you the one in Little Rock. I'll show you one in that I picked off of the page. It's not quite so elaborate. They get extremely elaborate and detailed. You probably won't remember all this at all. You probably won't remember half of it at all. And that's the goal, again, is just to expose us to understanding. When you work with somebody who's from India, and you'll have conversations sooner or later about God, where are they coming from? Most all of them, the guy I worked with actually grew up in a Roman Catholic school in India. So he wasn't Hindu. So I can't add anything that he told us there. But that we will be working. You know, if you call any tech support system, you're going to talk to somebody that's almost assuredly Indian, because I can't understand them either. Let's pray, and we'll see y'all next week. Father, there's a lot of folks in this world that are really dying to get out of it, and would love to have purpose in their life. And they love to know that there's a God who cares about them, and a God that will save them because he loves them. And they don't know this. And Father, as you bring these folks into contact in our lives where we work, where we live, help us to love on them. Help them to see you. And may they see you in us as they go about their daily lives. Father, thank you for giving us tonight. Thank you for letting us have this time together. Bless us as we go about this week, that Jesus may be seen wherever we go. We ask through Jesus. Amen. Thank y'all.